The last day of school is supposed to be a time for celebration. Senior pranks, yearbook signatures, the taste of freedom just around the corner. But for some, it's the moment everything unravels. In tonight's chilling episode, we explore 3 terrifying real stories of students whose final day wasn't marked by graduation, but by something far more sinister. First, in the yearbook nobody remembered taking, a student finds a mysterious copy of the yearbook in his locker. Inside, twisted photos of classmates screaming, blank faces, and a disturbing memorial page, with his living friend listed among the dead. What follows is a descent into a reality where you never really graduate. You just vanish into the pages forever. Then, in the detention that wasn't on the schedule, a girl gets sentenced to after-school detention on the very last day, only to discover she's not in detention at all. The classroom, the teacher, and the students are all wrong, and once her name is carved into the desk, there may be no going home again. And finally, the locker that should have stayed shut. A skeptic accepts a dare to open the one locker that's been sealed since the 90s. Inside, he finds a photo of himself that shouldn't exist and awakens something ancient within the school that demands a name before the bell rings one last time. Don't look away, don't skip ahead, and whatever you do, don't answer when the school calls your name. This is one video you'll want to watch until the very end. Story 1, the yearbook nobody remembered taking. You had one job that final day of school: return your books, sign yearbooks, and try not to cry. Graduation was only days away, and freedom buzzed in the air like summer heat on pavement. But when Jamie Reyes opened his locker that morning, something felt wrong. There it was, a thick leather-bound yearbook he swore he never bought. No plastic shrink wrap, no receipts, just a dusty maroon cover embossed with his high school's name, Hammond Ridge High, class of 2003. But when he flipped it open, every photo was wrong. The smiling faces of his classmates were there, but posed in ways that weren't in any of the official pictures. Students slouched dead-eyed in lockers. Others were mid-scream, mouths agape. Even the teachers looked twisted, faces frozen in grainy anguish like old crime scene footage. Jamie's own photo showed him standing at the edge of the school's rooftop. He'd never even been up there. He slammed it shut. His best friend, Cody, laughed it off when Jamie told him. Probably a senior prank. Someone printed a fake copy and swapped it in your locker. But by lunch, Jamie was spiraling. More people were noticing things, photos they didn't remember posing for. Entire pages filled with black ink, just names and blank ovals where faces should be. Then came the page nobody remembered submitting. In loving memory. It listed 5 names, including Cody's. Jamie stormed to the main office. "Where's Mrs. Langley? I need to ask her about the yearbook orders." But the secretary just stared blankly. "Mrs. Langley passed away. Last year, Jamie." "No, I saw her this morning. She was just—" "Jamie," the woman interrupted, slowly standing. "You've been gone since sophomore year." "What?" The hallway behind him had gone silent. When Jamie turned around, it was empty. No students, no teachers, no sound, just lockers, stretching forever, and the yearbook in his hands. He flipped to the back, a page he hadn't noticed before, a single line written in blood-red ink. "You graduate when we say you do." Then the bell rang, and every locker behind him clicked open, one by one. The lockers snapped open in a rhythmic wave, echoing through the endless hallway, like bones cracking in unison. Jamie backed away, heart pounding in his ears. The yearbook in his hands felt hot, alive, its pages rustling though there was no wind. He turned in circles, no exits, just rows of lockers stretching far beyond what the school's layout ever allowed. Then, footsteps, slow, measured, approaching. Jamie dropped the book and ran. He sprinted past biology labs that looked too clean, past trophy cases full of awards from years that didn't exist. The hall curved unnaturally, like the whole school was bending in on itself. No matter how fast he ran, the architecture warped. Walls bled into ceilings, stairwells turned to dead ends. And always, behind him, the footsteps. Faster now. He ducked into the auditorium, slamming the heavy door behind him. Darkness swallowed the space. On the stage, under a single spotlight, stood the yearbook, open, waiting. He should have run, but he was drawn to it. He stepped up onto the stage and looked down at the pages. They were turning themselves, faster, faster, until they stopped on a new photo, his senior class. Only this time every student's face was slashed with red ink, except his, and at the center was Jamie, arms raised in victory, grinning, surrounded by bodies sprawled around him like confetti. Then the lights in the auditorium blinked off, and the whispering began, low and guttural at first. Dozens of voices, all calling his name in a chant. Jamie, Jamie, Jamie. The lights flickered back on. Every seat in the auditorium was now filled with students, his classmates, but they weren't alive. Their skin was gray and cracked, eyes dull and sunken. Some were missing jaws, others were twisted in impossible angles, as if crushed in lockers or fallen from high ledges, and every one of them clapped, slow, mocking. You never graduated, a voice rasped behind him. Jamie turned. There stood Mrs. Langley, or what used to be her. Her body floated slightly off the floor, eyes hollowed sockets of pitch. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide, revealing rows of jagged yearbook photo negatives instead of teeth. You never made it past sophomore year, she croaked. You never left this place. I don't understand, Jamie stammered. I was here. I remember everything. You remember what we let you remember, she said, raising a bony hand. The yearbook snapped shut on the stage, and Jamie's legs buckled. A surge of cold rushed through him like ink filling his veins. He collapsed, paralyzed, as the yearbook floated into the air and hovered over his chest. His name burned onto the leather. Class of 2003. The auditorium of corpses echoed in unison. Forever. The book slammed down. Darkness swallowed him. 2 weeks later, the janitor found Jamie's locker open with the yearbook sitting neatly inside. No student by that name was on the roster, no photo, no records. But in that year's final yearbook, on the last blank page, there was a new photo. A boy on stage, alone, screaming into an empty auditorium. No one knew who he was, except the next person to find the book. And they always did. Story 2. The detention that wasn't on the schedule. It was supposed to be the best day of the year. Senior prank day, water balloons, glitter bombs. Someone even swapped the morning announcements with a pre-recorded fart symphony. But not for Lily Chen. She was caught defacing school property with washable sidewalk chalk. A giant pastel unicorn on the front steps. The vice principal didn't care that it was harmless. Detention, today, after school, he growled. But it's the last day. There's no detention today. There is now. Lily stood frozen, chalk still in her hand. Something about the way he said it. It was too calm, too final. Everyone else got to go home early. The halls buzzed with laughter and flapping yearbook pages. But Lily had to stay. 3:15 p.m. The school was nearly empty. Just the janitor buffing floors and the cafeteria lady chuckling at her phone. Lily dragged her feet down the west wing, but when she reached the detention room, room 209, the door was ajar. Odd. It was always locked. She peeked in. Empty. No teacher, no students. Just rows of desks and the low hum of flickering overhead lights. The clock on the wall was frozen at 3:14. She stepped inside. The door shut behind her. Hard. Lily jumped and yanked it. Locked. Okay, hilarious. Senior prank, right? She said aloud. But no one answered. She sat at the desk closest to the window, watching the parking lot, completely empty, not even the janitor's cart. She tried texting her mom, but there was no signal. Then she noticed something. The desks behind her were different. They weren't the usual laminated school desks. These were old, wooden, scratched and carved with names, some barely legible, others violently gouged out. She turned back to her desk. It had changed, too. The laminate was gone. Now it matched the others. A rusted metal base, a wooden top, split slightly in the middle, and in the corner, her name was carved into it. Lily Chen, June 3rd, 1997. That wasn't possible. It was 2024. Lily scrambled back. The lights overhead popped one by one until only a dim glow came from a desk lamp in the far corner. Then the sound of a chair scraping. She wasn't alone. A figure sat near the back. A boy in an old varsity jacket, hunched forward. He wasn't there before. Lily called out, "Hello?" The boy looked up, his face pale, skin waxy. His lips moved slowly, as if underwater. "Don't let them write your name." "What?" But he didn't repeat it. The door creaked open again. This time Lily didn't move, because standing there was a teacher, one she'd never seen before. He wore a faded black suit, with a red-inked detention slip pinned to his lapel. "Attendance," he said flatly, voice like dried leaves. He raised a clipboard and began reading names, one by one. "Travis Jameson?" The boy in the back raised his hand. "Here," he whispered. "Maria Alvarez." Silence. "Expelled," the teacher said without emotion. He marked something with a quill, yes, a real quill, and kept going. Then he paused. "Lily Chen?" She didn't answer. She didn't even breathe. "Lily Chen," he repeated, "we must confirm your presence before you can leave." The lights dimmed further. Her phone buzzed once, then died. Lily clenched her fists, backing toward the window, which was now dark as night. It had been broad daylight 5 minutes ago. "I didn't sign up for this," she said, voice cracking. The teacher smiled, teeth too sharp. "No one signs up, but once your name is written, it's permanent." Lily turned to run for the door, but the hallway outside was no longer there. Just another classroom, full of desks and students, watching, every one of them with hollow eyes and carved names in their desks. Some looked like they hadn't moved in years. And in the center, a seat was waiting, her name freshly carved. Lily stood frozen at the threshold. Her name was carved into the seat, fresh, still splintering. And around her, the classroom pulsed like a living organism, walls creaking, floorboards groaning beneath her. The students sat eerily still, as if held in place by some unseen force. One girl near the window mouthed something silently. Lily leaned closer. "Don't sit down." But the teacher, if you could call him that, was already moving. He stepped between the rows of desks with unnatural grace, his feet never quite touching the ground. The clipboard hovered just above his hand, swaying as if underwater. The red ink on the detention slip, pinned to his chest, dripped slowly, staining his shirt like fresh blood. "Lily Chen," he repeated, smiling like a mannequin. "Take your seat." She turned and bolted for the door. It slammed shut. The knob vanished. Panic clawed up her throat as she banged against the wall where the exit used to be. "Let me out." Behind her, The scraping of chairs, dozens of them, students rising in unison. But they didn't walk. They glided, arms limp at their sides, eyes fixed on her with a sorrowful hunger. Not rage, not malice, desperation, as if they wanted her to join them, so they could leave. Lily ran to the windows, but outside was nothing. A swirling black void where the school grounds used to be. No cars, no sky, just the sound of distant whispers repeating her name. Lily, Lily, Lily. She grabbed a desk and threw it against the glass. The desk vanished before it made contact. Gone. She turned. The room now only held one thing, the desk with her name. Still empty, still waiting. The teacher extended a bony hand. Finish your final hour, then we'll dismiss you. I don't belong here, she screamed. Neither did they, he said, gesturing to the others. And now that she looked, the students had changed. They weren't strangers anymore. They were names she knew from school, kids who had disappeared, dropped out, moved away without warning, but one stood out. The girl near the window, Amber Farley, vanished in 2010. The rumor was she'd run away, but now, her yearbook photo flashed in Lily's mind. Same face, same sad eyes. The truth was worse than any rumor. They never ran away. They were held here, by attendance. The clipboard, the name, that's all it took. Lily did the only thing she could think of. She ran to the desk and scratched at the carved name with her nails, trying to destroy it, remove it before the ink bled dry. The teacher shrieked, a sound like cracking glass and ripping paper. He lunged toward her, but the room twisted violently, walls melting, lights flaring red. The air burned like acid. She screamed as she dug deeper into the desk, splinters driving under her nails, blood mixing with the carved wood. You will sit, the teacher thundered, but she didn't, not even when the desk caught fire. The classroom collapsed inward like a dying star, students vanishing one by one in bursts of ash. And then, silence. Lily woke up gasping, face down on the front steps of the school. It was morning again. People were laughing, teachers chatting, and the school looked normal, except for the desk, right there on the lawn, charred black, her name still faintly visible. She never told anyone, but from that day on, she skipped roll call, every time, every class, because once your name is written in that other register, you don't graduate, you just disappear. Story 3. The Locker That Should Have Stayed Shut. June 8th, the final day of classes at Meadowbrook High. Seniors were buzzing with excitement, tearing down posters, throwing paper airplanes, leaving graffiti messages of farewell and rebellion, except for Marcus Lane. He had one goal left before graduation, to open locker 319. It had been welded shut since freshman year. Rumors flew around it like gnats. Some said a kid vanished after opening it. Others claimed it was cursed. Every student assigned that locker dropped out, transferred, or worse. But Marcus didn't believe in ghost stories. He was the class skeptic, the self-proclaimed logic guy. That's why his friends dared him to crack it open. What's the worst that could happen? They laughed. The janitor wouldn't talk about it. The principal dodged the question, and somehow even the school's blueprints had the number skipped, jumping from 318 to 320. But it was there, right between the others, dusty, untouched, as if the building had forgotten it existed. So on that final day, when the school emptied out and students rushed to parties, Marcus stayed behind with a crowbar and determination. The hallway was dead quiet. Echoes carried too far, the kind of silence that made your ears ring. He approached the locker. The metal was cold, far colder than it should have been in the heat of June. The number 319 looked freshly carved, as if someone had etched it just hours before. Marcus wedged the crowbar into the door and pushed. It groaned like a dying animal. Then, snap, it popped open, and the stench hit him. Rotting paper, old metal, Moldavian, but beneath it, something else. Decay. Marcus coughed, waving the dust away, peering inside. There was no backpack, no old notebooks, only a single object, a school ID badge. The plastic faded and cracked. He wiped it clean. Jason Ellis, class of 1998. Marcus froze. Jason Ellis was real, a senior who had vanished on the last day of school, 25 years ago. The locker creaked wider on its own. Inside, something shifted. A second object slid forward, an old flip phone, scratched and dead. But as Marcus picked it up, the screen blinked on. No passcode, just a single notification. One, voicemail. He tapped play. Static. Then a voice, warped, croaking. Don't let them see you. Once the locker's open, they can move again. They smell graduation. Click. Marcus dropped the phone. Then the hallway lights flickered. One by one, lockers down the corridor clicked open. Not all the way, just slightly ajar, like eyes blinking awake. From behind him came a soft thud. He turned. Jason Ellis's ID was gone. In its place, a freshly printed one, Marcus Lane class of 2024. His photo wasn't smiling. It wasn't even from this year. It showed him standing in front of locker 319, eyes wide, mouth open, frozen in mid-scream. Marcus stumbled back, dropping the ID. It hit the tile floor with a dull plastic slap, spinning once before landing face up. His own face stared back at him, twisted, horrified, and wrong. That picture wasn't from this year. It wasn't from any year. He had never posed for it. And yet there it was, capturing this exact moment, as if the locker had taken it. The hallway lights above him began to flicker in a pattern, one after the other, stretching down the corridor. As the bulbs buzzed and dimmed, the lockers continued to creak open, a rhythmic metallic clatter, like something inside them was waking up. Then came the scratching. From inside locker after locker, fingernails dragged across metal, slow, purposeful. Marcus backed away, but locker 319 yawned open wider, groaning like a door that hadn't moved in decades. And from inside it came a whisper, a single voice, his own. Run! He turned to bolt down the hallway, toward the exit doors, but the school had changed. There were no doors anymore, only lockers, thousands of them, stacked and winding like tunnels down endless corridors. Some pulsed faintly with light behind their vents. Others bled ink down their frames. The building had reshaped itself, turned inside out. Marcus wasn't in a school anymore. He was inside it. The real Meadowbrook High had spit him out and locked him inside the version that existed behind the walls, the one that devoured students who didn't belong on graduation day. And he had broken the seal. He rounded a corner and found himself back at the original hallway. Locker 319 loomed at the center, but this time it wasn't empty. A boy stood in front of it, tall, pale, wearing a faded Letterman jacket, Jason Ellis. He turned, and Marcus saw that his eyes were missing. Black sockets stared back. His skin was cracked, gray, as if time had tried to bury him but failed. Jason spoke in a hollow voice. You opened it. That means it's your turn. Marcus shook his head, backing away. No, I didn't mean to. I didn't know. No one ever does, Jason said. But it's hungry. It needs a name before the school year ends. Jason stepped forward, and Marcus could hear the crunch of dust beneath his boots. Yearbook pages littered the floor now, shredded and yellowed, with hundreds of faces scratched out. You have to choose, Jason whispered. Leave or feed it. Marcus didn't understand. Leave where? Jason pointed to a new locker at the end of the hall. Unlike the others, it was glowing faintly blue, humming with electricity. An exit. But it only opens, Jason said, if someone else takes your place. A second ID slipped from the shadows beside locker 319. Not Marcus's, Kara Benson, his ex-girlfriend. She'd texted him earlier, asking to meet after school for a final goodbye. She was still in the parking lot, waiting. If he put her ID in the locker, the door would seal again. He could leave, but she'd be trapped forever. The floor vibrated. A deep growl rumbled through the building. The school was deciding. Marcus had seconds. He held both IDs in his trembling hands, Kara's or his own. The next morning, graduation went as planned. Smiles, applause, tears. Kara Benson was called to the stage, but she wasn't there. They announced her name twice, then moved on. Later, janitors found a student ID sitting neatly in front of locker 319. The name? Marcus Lane. Nobody remembered seeing him walk the stage. Nobody remembered him at all. But if you listen closely, sometimes, after the last bell of the year, you'll hear a voice inside locker 319, screaming your name. So, still excited for your last day of school? If these stories taught us anything, it's that some goodbyes come with a price. And not every student gets to walk across that stage. Some are claimed by yearbooks that rewrite reality. Some are erased by roll call. And some open the wrong locker and never come back out. Which story haunted you the most? Let us know in the comments. We read everything. If you made it this far, you're officially one of the brave ones. But don't get too comfortable, because we have more terrifying true stories coming soon. So hit that subscribe button, tap the bell icon, and be ready for your next nightmare. And remember, just because school's out doesn't mean you are. Until next time, stay alert, stay alive, and don't open that locker.